and then obviously a different shift again with when supercars first came back.
Well, the reason supercars came back is because we got together as a group and said, well, look, the crowd numbers are starting to fall off and our TV ratings are starting to wane a bit. What are we going to do to be able to bring all this back? And the one thing that sort of really stuck its head out over all this time, because people didn't know what Sierras were, they weren't sold here in Australia, they didn't know what Nissan Skylines were, they didn't know any of those sort of things. And so we all sat down together and said, well, how are we going to sort of regenerate this? Because it's really important for us to keep a profile. So what we did is we sat around this table and said, well, the one thing that people always loved was the Ford Holden battles. Mm. So why don't we start going back to where we knew that things worked? So, and that's how it all started back in 1992.
I've been lucky enough to look at a couple of different motoring museums, and I've seen your facility at Stapleton. To see even the Sierra next to a current V8 supercar, very different kettle of fish, isn't it?
It's night and day, yes, it really is. Because the rules are quite somewhat different to what V8 supercar rules are, and like you've got to move with the times. Like you've got to accept change in any business you're in, and if you don't accept change in motorsport, like you're obviously going to die on the vine. And we needed to get a package together that was cost effective and certainly that was something that people would see as entertainment. And that's how the V8 supercars have come about. Plus, the most important thing is we've got to look at the safety of the public and certainly the drivers.
Mm. Dick, when the cars first started to come out, I mean, again, there was differences with aerodynamic kits and all that sort of stuff, and we've seen that become more standardised and that sort of thing. What do you think are the next challenges for V8s? What's the next, crystal balling a little bit, what do you think the next challenges are that lie ahead?
Well, in this day and age, I suppose, you've got to accept the fact that, there is a bit of a drama happening, worldwide, so be it. But at the end of the day, V8 supercars is pretty strong. And I think that we've got to be very mindful of whatever changes we make with the rules and things like that, that we go to the people that sort of, are the ones who really support V8 supercars, because the day that it's not entertaining for them, they're not going to turn up. So we really need to sort of keep that in mind, and also the thing that we've got to really look at is being able to make sure that we can control the costs. There's two things that cost more than anything else in motorsport. Number one is competition. Well, you don't want the competition to go away because you really haven't got an event then. Mm. But secondly is change. And the moment you change something, you go down this route of being able, because of the competition, you go down this route of being able to say, well, we need to develop this or develop that. So we need to be able to sort of curb all of that and make sure that we freeze everything for a period of time so we can utilise the equipment we have without going down the road of spending hundreds of thousands of dollars developing some new gadget that might give you some advantage. But, this would be an easy game to be in if it wasn't for the competition.
Because you're right. The moment you change something, I think there's something people don't realise with motorsport. You change one thing on a car, it's not just that one component that's altered. It could have altered the way the tyre performs or the way the drivetrain performs or the gearbox or whatever.
Well, just in the engine, for instance, like if they all of a sudden said, well, now everyone's got to, like they're looking at now, everyone's got to run this control valve train, which is a camshaft, etc., etc. Well, you go down this whole route of being able to, then you've got to look at your inlet manifold, you've got to look at your exhaust systems, you've got to look at your cylinder head sizes, and it just goes on and on and on and on. And you'll try every single damn thing to make sure that you're going to get the most out of it. And that's what the competition is. But if we freeze things the way they are, everything seems to be pretty balanced at this point in time. I know that we're still trying to save cost in running the operation, but there's a number of things we can do there which I think will really save the teams an awful lot of money.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, there's a lot of teams out there working with 2 and 3 times the budget of most of us. So
we spoke about change there just briefly, and I want to sort of touch on this aspect because clearly throughout your career you've seen the highest of highs and you've seen the lowest of lows. When it comes to managing that, how does Dick Johnson approach those challenges to life? Whether it's in the car, out of the car, whatever. What's your view on that?
Well, like I said before, I always try and turn negatives into positives, which is something that I've always, sort of prided myself in being able to do. sometimes it doesn't work, but majority of the times there's always something good comes out of bad. And you know, I've had a lot of knocks along the way, which I thought, well, you know, this is really going to hurt us. But, you know, as that door closes, another one sort of opens. You look at things differently. And, you know, when we got sort of strapped for budget there for quite some time, and, we started looking at things that we'd already shelved and almost thrown in the bin. And then all of a sudden we found gains, thinking, well, you know, why have we done this? We can save money by actually developing stuff that we'd virtually thrown in the bin. And that's where we've found probably more performance than we have had we have had the budget to go and spend on it. So, you know, this is why we, you know, continually try and, you know, make the most of whatever situation pops up in front of us.
I guess just looking again at career and different eras, is there one era that is your favourite? Is there one that stands out to go, well, I think that was the best, or I think the best is yet to come, or is there one era or one particular car you drove that you thought, wow, this is probably as good as it gets?
Well, the car that I loved most was the one that used to win, you know. So, but at the end of the day, you know, I've probably seen the biggest change in motorsport anyone will ever see in a career, because from the day that I started, it was purely an amateur sport where there was no sponsors, there's nothing. It was all just like Saturday, you know, you'd turn up on Saturday, you'd sort of practice and have a race, and you'd come out on Sunday and do the same, etc., etc. We used to put the cars back on the trail and take them home every night and things like that, you know. So, you know, things have changed somewhat over that period of time, but that's how motorsport has grown. But the Sierra days were great, but they were different again to the early Falcon days, the XD and the XEs. You know, people loved the old green stuff car. They thought it was just terrific, and even though it went through the trees and got sort of a bit bent,
just a little.
But you know, that's the tenacity of our team. You know, where the important part about our whole operation is the team of people you have around you, and like I said before, it's a combination of all these things that make you win races, and you know, in recent times we've lacked in a couple of those areas, but I believe that we're sort of getting pretty close to having what we need to stand on the podium more times than not.
The last time we had you on air, I actually made mention of that fact. I think your cars look the best I've seen for a long time, and the way the whole team is structured now, and again the physical presence of the cars, looking at what the guys are doing on the weekend, you know, it was great to see the cars out there. So they do look good, and you're obviously ticking boxes and moving forward. Well,
as I said, it's about putting the right people in the right place, and like that's a difficult thing to do. You know, whether it be in motor racing or business or whatever, you're only as good as the people you've got around you, and this is why we sort of try so hard to make sure that we've got a good cohesive bunch of people. If we got somebody in there who's not a real team player but maybe very good at their job, I'd rather not have them in the team, and we move them on, because of the fact that they can upset you know, just how the team gels together. And to me, that's probably the most important part, is just having a group of people that work together, because they spend more time with each other than they do with their families.
That's right. I don't think people realise that, just how much a race team spends time away from home.
They certainly do, and you know, we've got to appreciate that, and we give our guys plenty of time, you know, as far as prior to race meetings, when the cars are en route to whatever venue it is, and certainly after the event. You know, I think a bunch of the guys after Sandown, they've headed up the snow. I think they get home tonight, so I hope they're still walking by the time they get back.
Dick, just final question. Obviously, for Jim Beam Racing, the rest of the season now, we've sort of got things settled down. We're leading into those Enduros and obviously the Bathurst. Your views on preparation there? Everything on schedule there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you know, I'm really looking forward to the longer races, because I believe that you know, our cars are good and strong in that area, and the pairing between Stephen and James, I think, will be a pretty difficult one to sort of top when you get to Bathurst. I think there's probably 3 or 4 teams that are really going to sort of when they get to Bathurst, I think they'll be the favourites. But you know, Bathurst is a long event. It's a difficult one to win, and so is Phillip Island. Any race is difficult to win, but and certainly with this new fuel that we have, whether you like it or not, we're going to end up with probably 8 pit stops at Bathurst, which
really,
yeah, because you know, you use 40% more of it. So
of course, yeah,
and that in itself, I think, becomes a challenge, because all the strategies come, you know, into play and things like that. So and then up until now, fuel economy hasn't been an issue. But at this point, when you get to Bathurst, it will be, because if you've got to make one extra stop over somebody else because you're about 1 or 2 laps short, well, that in itself, plays into the hands of those who can sort of make it without it.
Absolutely. Dick Johnson, it's been fantastic to talk to you. We wish you and Jim Beam Racing all the very best for the rest of this season, of course, for the Enduros, and thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure, mate. We'll give it our best shot, I can tell you.
Good as gold. Thanks, Dick.